Here we are, February 26th. I'm out here in a cutoff t-shirt and it's like 65 degrees and it is beautiful this evening. It's gonna be dark in like 45 minutes, but I'm out here in the hayfield and we are getting soil samples. So this is my homemade PVC soil sample rig right here. You got your PVC cross pieces here. It comes down, it's 45'd here, and you got a dowel rod here to push through the top here to get your plugs out. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably just buy an actual soil probe. But at the time, I just wanted, when I made that several years ago, I just wanted to get the samples done that one time and move on with life. And here we are like 5 years later, still using the thing. So what I've got here is I have a screw. The screws came in these, but just two containers, one for the hayfield, one for the pasture. We test those separately because they need separate things. And there's where I've kind of already started. So anyways, guys, join me as I finish this up down here, and we will be sending these things off to Virginia Tech, which was where I went to college, by the way. And we'll be getting recommendations on fertilization for this hayfield. So like I said, guys, this thing works okay. You know, if you want to build one, I would say it's worth it. But anyways, you know, it just doesn't go in quite as good, and I don't think it pulls out as good of a sample, but it does get the job done. And you don't want to just ram it in there because you don't want to break the PVC. And also, you kind of got to do it when the soil's sort of moist. So get that down there. Pull up on it. Right there's your plug. Then what you do is I'm going to insert this dowel rod down through here. We'll push the plug out right here. We'll see what this one looks like. Alrighty, there you go. And I'll just keep on repeating this, zigzagging through my field. So the way I've been doing it for the last several years is I'll take my soil samples and then I will use those samples for 2 years worth of fertilizer recommendations. Now I don't get a sample as deep as looks like I'm going. I think that's one of the negatives with this thing. But the reason I do that is, number one, you know, you don't need to get a soil sample and go through this process and do all that every year. And number two, for what we're doing here with what little hay we make and all, this is perfect. What happens is we take these samples, I zigzag through the field. This is a 8-acre field, and I don't know, I get a decent amount of samples. Then you mix them all up, you send them in these boxes that the extension office has, and then what happens is you mail them to Virginia Tech, and then they email you the results. Then literally, if you've never done this before, when you go to get fertilizer, you just walk in there and you pretty much say, I need blank, blank, blank based on the recommendation. So it's that easy. I generally try to do these soil samples in the fall after our last cutting of hay. But this year I've been slacking. Like I said, we're into February right now. I mean, this is crunch time at this point, because I got to get these samples and get them sent in and then get the results. But when you do them in the fall, one of the ideas behind that is it gives you time to get the test results, and then if they have a lime recommendation, then you can do the lime in the fall, and it'll give that lime time to start working, you know, and breaking down and all that over winter. So I know you guys might be all over the country or even the world, but Virginia Tech has really good instructions on how to do these samples. And it's a PDF, it's 1 or 2 pages. So I'll leave a link to that in the description. And I will also leave a link to the form that you fill out. So the way it works in Virginia is if you are a farm, then you do not have to pay for your soil samples. Now you have to pay shipping and all that to get them to Virginia Tech, but you don't actually pay a fee. If you are a residential lawn, so you want to test your lawn or your garden or something like that, then they do charge you, and I think it's like, I don't know, $10 or something. I mean, it's low, and it's worth it. I mean, how do you really know what you need without doing any soil sampling? So I got the hay field done, and it's getting dark on me, so I can't wait until the time changes. I think it's not next weekend, but the one after. But yeah, that's my favorite time of year. But I'm down here in the pasture, and there's our run-in shed up there. And then if you come over here, this is what I need to be taking soil samples of. This is like 4 acres. So I'm gonna run down through here, get samples of all that, okay? And then I'll just show you real quick. Here's my hayfield samples. Man, I hope y'all can see that. Looks dark on my screen. But anyways, we'll get the pasture done, and I'll catch back up with you here in a minute. So it's now after dark. Let me show you. There you go. But anyways, I did finish getting the soil samples. So what we've got, I'll show them to you here. All right, here's the pasture. Here's the hayfield. And so if you go to your cooperative extension, or at least in Virginia, they have these boxes and they're free. And they actually have the instructions and all on it here. And then you fill it to here, you put your name, your sample ID. There's actually a page that you need to print off as well. It's one of those ones I linked in the description. But you make your box, you know, you close it all up, and then you mail it, and then they email you the results. But what I'm gonna do right now, this is an old fork. I'm just gonna kind of work everything up. And then what I'll do is I'll let this air dry for a day or 2. I don't really know that you need to. I doubt you need to. But it'll also allow me time to pick out some of the grass and different things that's in there. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I'll do the same thing on these hay samples. And then I will put them in boxes, we'll mail them out, and we'll check out the results. A quick little update, it's now been 24 hours, and the soil is really good and dry, but actually has a little bit of moisture in it. I picked out most of the grass. That's the hay, and then the pasture. I don't think I picked out the grass as good on that one. But anyways, there it is. Now, I've got my boxes made up. You can have a 5-digit sample ID, so I basically do pasture and hay. If you had different fields, you would basically have to do, you know, something else besides those 2 identifiers. So hay hay and hay. We'll dump this in, and you only fill it to this line right here. All right, that one's full. For the pasture, fill this up. Take out a little bit of that one, a little bit more. All right, so got that filled up. What I'll do, guys, I just have an old Amazon box. I gotta tape it up and everything, but I'll put these samples in there, and I've got some shredded cardboard that I'll put in there to be a buffer, and we'll get this shipped out tomorrow, and I will see you with the results in a few days. All right, guys, so here it is the next day. I'm down here, I've got the co-op behind me. If I switch this around, I got the post office right there. Got the soil samples right here, ready to go. Put my paperwork down in there. I'll take them in and we'll see y'all in a few days. So I'm out here in the hay field, and I tell you what, it is beautiful out here. It's early March and it's like 72 degrees today. It's amazing. Anyways, it's now been a couple days later, well, I guess a few days later. I sent the soil samples off on a Friday. They got to Virginia Tech on a Monday, and then I got the soil samples in my email on Friday. And that's what they do. They email them to you. There's no hard copies, none of that. But I printed the hard copies off, so let's take a look at them. So here is what the soil samples look like when you get them back. If you've never seen one, you've got one for the hay field and you've got one for the pasture. And the nice thing about these, guys, you can literally, you don't need to know anything about this stuff up here if you don't want to. You literally can just walk into your co-op or whatever and tell them you need the recommended fertilizer that's on here. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Well, let's take a look at what we've got here. Well, let's start with our pasture. This is the codes I put on that box, okay? And if you look, they don't test nitrogen because it moves through the soil so quickly. It's just, you put nitrogen down no matter what, and I'll get to that in a minute. That's down here on C comment. But anyways, our phosphorus was really high, which, you know, it's a pasture, so that's probably to be expected. And our potassium was medium at 106. And 2 years ago when I did the soil test, it was a 72. So, oh, and the other thing to take a note of, our pH now is a 6.5. 2 years ago it was a 6.4. So not a whole lot of change there. You can look at this other stuff, but it pretty much says sufficient, you know, whatever. I'm not a soil scientist, guys, so I don't know all this stuff. But if you look here, this is the recommendations. Fertilizer and limestone recommendations. Lime is none. That's basing off our pH. And your fertilizer recommendations are right here. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen, like I said, they don't test because you basically just put it down during the growing season. And if you look here, it says if stand contains less than 25% clover, which I'm in this category, apply 40 to 60 pounds of nitrogen. So I would be 40 to 60 pounds of nitrogen an acre here. They're recommending 0 here, and they're recommending 40 pounds of an acre of potassium here. And you literally just walk into your co-op and give them these numbers. 2 years ago, my numbers were the same here, but it was more potassium. And that's because if you look, my potassium now is 106, and it was a 72. So that's how you read this here. There's some additional notes here, but if additional production is needed later on, apply 40 to 60 pounds of nitrogen during the grazing season. The important thing to know here, and we'll spend 2 seconds on it, but this is pounds of the nutrient per acre. This is not like when you go to a garden store and you see 10, 10, 10. This is not that. The 10, 10, 10 is 10% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus, 10% potassium. Those are percentages. This is pounds of this per acre. Moving on to the hayfield. Same exact thing here, except on this one we limed last year and I wrote it down. You put how many months ago you limed and how many tons per acre, so they've filled that in right here. We'll get to that in a second. But it's the same thing. They don't do the nitrogen. So your phosphorus was a 34 and your potassium was a 63, and that was on the low side, okay? If you come over to your recommended, by the way, I should have said too in all of this, you tell them for each sample what you're going to end up growing. So like I told them this was a hay field, I told them this was a pasture, and there's all kind of codes that you put in. If you're growing soybeans, you put that code in and so forth. But anyways, so they're recommending 70, 40, 120 on my fertilizer for this year. 70 pounds of nitrogen, 40 pounds of phosphorus, and 120 pounds of potassium. Now, in January 23, I was at a 105 on potassium. Now I'm at a 63, so I've dropped on potassium. Okay? If you look, in January 23, my recommendations, same, but they were recommending lower back then on potassium. Makes total sense, because now my potassium is lower. They're recommending, instead of 95 pounds an acre, they're recommending 120. Other thing to note here is first time we've limed on that hay field, so usually we don't have any recommendations for lime. Well, 2 years ago we did. They wanted us to lime 1 ton an acre because I think our pH was 5.8 2 years ago. So we limed 1 ton an acre. It's been 2 years for it to work, and now we're putting out a 6.6 on our soil pH. And because they know this is a hay field, they give you notes for that as well. And it's kind of the same as the pasture. The nitrogen recommendations for March application. For additional fall hay production, apply 60 to 80 pounds of nitrogen an acre. So you can be adding nitrogen later on and none of the other stuff, which is what I normally do anyways. Well, I hope you enjoyed this process of getting soil samples. I know when I started doing it several years ago, I had never done it before and I didn't really know how to navigate those waters. So you just saw the whole process. That is how you do it. With that said, that's going to do it for this video. I'll put some other videos up here that I think you'll enjoy. If you decide to go watch them, I'll meet you over there. And for me, I'm going to enjoy this nice 70-degree evening, what's left of it. And I just want to say thank y'all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.